Welcome, Chosen Undead, to an in-depth look at the Darkroot expansion for Dark Souls, the board game. The Darkroot expansion for Dark Souls, the board game is a larger expansion than the Mega Boss expansions because these actually will include a whole new set of monsters, encounters, items, and main bosses. Here I have all the contents of the box laid out on the table, and have all the cards separated out into the relevant categories. So let's take a look at the rulebook and see how you can incorporate this into your own games of Dark Souls the board game. We open up the rulebook here to see the first page has the introduction, same as Mega Bosses. It also talks about how the expansion has all the supported language cards within it, so you don't have to worry about finding the correct box that supports your language. Then we take a look at the second page. It has all the contents that I have already strewn out here. And on the next page, it talks about how to add these encounters and treasures. If you want to add the new monsters here into your games, you have to add the relevant monster data cards and these encounter cards. How you choose to do that is up to you. You can either only use these encounter cards, that way the encounters you draw will only have monsters from this expansion, or you can add these cards into the decks that you have from the core set and any other expansions to create larger pools of cards to pick from when it comes time to play your game. That's up for you to decide on how you want to incorporate these encounters. As far as the monsters go, you'll get 3 sheer scarecrows, 3 plow scarecrows, 2 demonic foliages, 1 mushroom child, 1 mushroom parent, 2 stone guardians, and 2 stone knights. A whole new cast of monsters that feel very different from the monsters in the core set. They have their own set of challenges, but I dare say that they might be harder than the monsters in the core set. That's just my opinion after facing an entire playthrough from mini boss to mega boss using only these monsters. Next, we'll talk about how to incorporate these new treasure cards into your game. This decision comes at the very beginning of your playthrough. There are 15 cards here, and if you want to include these, what you have to do is take out 15 regular cards from the core set, and then add these cards into the deck and shuffle them in. All these cards are common cards, so there are no restrictions on which may be included because they will all be included. It's you either add them in or you don't. A good change of pace if you're tired of all the cards from the core set, but because you don't know which 15 cards you're taking out, it might kind of mess up the balance of your treasure deck. And again, the treasure deck wasn't really that balanced to begin with, so jury's out on that. The next thing we'll see here in the rulebook is the idea of a 0 dodge difficulty attack. Now, ignore all of this. This doesn't exist. This isn't a typo, but Steamforged Games has put out in the comments section of their Kickstarter that this no longer exists. At some point in time, Sif and Notorious had attacks that didn't have a dodge difficulty, but since the release of this expansion, that idea has been taken out entirely. So, ignore all of this. Then in the next 2 pages, it talks about how to incorporate Sif and Notorious into your games. Sif and Notorious are both main bosses, so you can only face them after fighting a mini-boss, but otherwise, you incorporate them the exact same way as you would any other main boss. So let's take a look at their stat cards and see how they behave. Sif's ability here is Mournful Howl. There's a card in this behavior deck that is called Limping Strike, and it's not a starting behavior card or heat up card. Instead, when Sif is reduced to 3 health or less, you would replace the entire behavior deck with the Limping Strike card. This is similar to how Sif behaves in the video game. When he's on his last bit of health, he starts to limp and his attacks become less intense. But just like the rulebook says here, I have fought Sif and it is hard to get to that point. It's your victory lap once you finally get him down to 3 health or less, but it's not going to be easy getting him to that point. He's still a very tough fight. Then we have Notorious. Notorious' ability is Walking the Abyss. When he heats up, you remove 2 random behavior cards from his deck and then add all 3 heat up cards to his deck and then shuffle. This is different from other bosses in the game because normally you would only take 1 card from that monster's heat up deck as opposed to all of them. And you can only imagine what cards he's going to be bringing to the table. He's going to be leaping, slashing, sliding, and hitting like a massive truck. Because that's how Notorious do. He's very resistant but has lower health than most bosses. But that does not mean he is a wimp by any measure. And you can already tell getting to him is going to be a pain. Because he requires 4 level 3 encounters before even fighting him. So he's no pushover. In the back of the booklet, there is a campaign scenario for this expansion. This one's interesting because for the Darkroot Garden, it says to fight a Hydra Lake level 3 encounter. That's a specific encounter in the deck, and I guess it's supposed to emulate the video game, but doesn't do it proper justice, because there is no proper Hydra Lake monster. I see what they're trying to do, not the greatest way to do it. If anything, I would say fight a Titanite demon, then fight Sif, then fight Notorious. That would make more sense, but hey, that's just me. It also has some special instructions here for this campaign, but that's all that's in this expansion. If you want to fight new monsters, this would be the expansion to get. Other than the old Iron Keep that will be coming hopefully later in the year. And let's face it, people love Sif and Notorious. And having more main bosses in the game is only more content, which is a good thing. I can't say this is a bad expansion by any means. In fact, I think it's great, barring a few little things such as the demon foliage model does not look that great, leaves a bit to be desired. And the way that treasure cards are incorporated doesn't feel like they're really trying to balance the game, because a lot of people have a problem with the way treasures are handled in the core game, and have chosen to house rule how it works entirely. Steamforged Games also hasn't been very great when it comes to answering FAQs or providing erratas in a very public way. There is an FAQ and errata that is on their website, but it's terribly outdated and hasn't been touched since April of 2017. Not to mention the sloppy way they handled the zero dodge difficulty in the rulebook really isn't a good sign, considering I had to dig for that information. And people have had this in their hands for about a month. Sure, they're going to answer it on Kickstarter at some point, if they haven't already. But what about people who buy this expansion after the fact from a retail store? Come on guys, get with the program. But otherwise, this is a great expansion, and you can bet the next time I post a playthrough video, I'll be using it, with Notorious as the main boss I'll be facing. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you did, subscribe to the channel to support the future release of videos like this, and leave a comment on what you would like to see in the future, whether it's another Dark Souls board game expansion, or other games you'd be interested to see. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Oh, what a strong girl you are. Oh boy, she gave no fucks.